Okay, now, Mr. Ngunyi, what's happening now is very reminiscent of the 80s and the 90s as concerns institutionalized corruption. Are those good or rather bad old days back with us?
I think the bad old days never left. What happened for a short period of time was we had a change of players. But the same players of the 80s are back. Now they're back through ODM, for instance. Some of them have been recycled through PNU. And the same old players. So most of them had unfinished business. The kind of fellows that were kicked out in 2002 are back. They had unfinished business when we kicked them out unceremoniously. Essentially, they're there to finish the business. The PNU fellows also have business they had not completed, and they're there to finish it. So really, the same old script with the same old players, I would say.
You know, many people tend to blame corruption on the leaders themselves, but corruption is something as endemic as any disease, like a runaway virus, and it affects Kenyans as well. Kenyans become part of the process. Would you say this is why we can't fight corruption, or do you think that that corruption flows down from the leaders and affects us only as victims?
I think corruption is engraved, in a sense, in our political DNA. When we go for elections, you hear a community saying it's our time to go and eat. What that means essentially is our time to go and do corruption. So essentially, in that way, it is in our political DNA. But also, there's a sense in which we perpetuate it by basically condoning it. I do not see why Kenyans are not rioting over the stealing of 70% of the maize that was imported, while as people are dying of hunger in some places. I think that kind of complacency in itself creates a ground in which corruption thrives. And I believe that as a result of that, we are likely to see economic impunity with this fellowship of thugs.
Let's talk about complacency for a bit. A man who's been accused of being complacent is Aaron Ringera. Has Ringera done his job as the head of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, or has he failed?
I think Aaron Ringera should be fired, in my view. What Ringera doesn't have is not teeth, or he lacks his will. Because if he had the will, there's a way in which he would have interpreted his TOR creatively to allow him to basically bite. But because he doesn't have a will to do it, I think he basically is unable to fight corruption. But it could also be possible, and this hypothesis, that Ringera is a ploy. That maybe he was put there largely to placate Kenyans, so that we know that as long as Ringera is there, as we knew of John Githongo, so long as John was there, corruption was being fought. So long as Ringera is there, corruption is being fought.
The coalition government hasn't agreed on much, both sides of the coalition government, PNU, ODM. They haven't agreed on much in the year that they've been together. Yet, in these corruption scandals, we're hearing names from both sides popping up. What does that say about the grand coalition? Is this their point of synergy? Is this the meeting point of sorts?
I have called them in the past a fellowship of thugs. And it appears like that is precisely what they are. They basically came together largely to work, but to also eat from the government kitty, because government is big business. And the problem we have right now is that you cannot implicate any of the key fellows without collapsing the coalition. Because, for instance, if we said that Raila is actually implicated, as was claimed by some MP, in this maize scandal, we'll take him nowhere, because it's totally protected by this coalition government. And that's why, in a sense, I tend to think that they have hijacked the country, and they're using the coalition government and the provisions of the accord in particular to do whatever they so wish.
Then who fights corruption in this country?
Any country that has fought corruption, and historical evidence will bear me out on this, has done it from the top. And the story there has been actually that the top is neither a beneficiary of corruption nor or the people around the top are also not beneficiaries. in this particular case. But in a situation where they are beneficiaries, either directly or where their families or maybe their cronies are beneficiaries directly, then they are bound to act suboptimally. And the question we must ask is two principles as the people who have employed them as the voters is, are they beneficiaries of it? Are their families, are their cronies benefiting from it? And if they are, then we should not expect them to act at all optimally. They'll act suboptimally, they will be woolly in their responses, and nothing will happen.